Welcome to the Tulsa Botanic Garden virtual lesson. Today's lesson is on snow. The book we'll be reading today is Snowflake Bentley by Jacqueline Briggs Martin. Then we'll be discussing how snowflakes form and what their structure is. And then I have some activities for you to do. Snowflake Bentley by Jacqueline Briggs Martin, illustrated by Mary Azarian. In the days when farmers worked with ox and sled and cut the dark with lantern light, there lived a boy who loved snow more than anything else in the world. Willie Bentley's happiest days were snowstorm days. He watched snowflakes fall on his mittens, on the dried grass of Vermont farm fields, on the dark metal handle of the barn door. He said snow was as beautiful as butterflies or apple blossoms. He could net butterflies and show them to his oldest brother, Charlie. He could pick apple blossoms and take them to his mother, but he could not share snowflakes because he could not save them. When his mother gave him an old microscope, he used it to look at flowers, raindrops, and blades of grass. Best of all, he used it to look at snow. While other children built forts and pelted snowballs at roosting crows, Willie was catching single snowflakes. Day after stormy day, he studied the ice crystals. Their intricate patterns were even more beautiful than he had imagined. He expected to find whole flakes that were the same, that were copies of each other. But he never did. Willie decided he must find a way to save snowflakes so others could see their wonderful designs. For 3 winters, he tried drawing snow crystals. They always melted before he could finish. When he was 16, Willie read of a camera with its own microscope. If I had that camera, I could photograph snowflakes, he told his mother. Willie's mother knew he would not be happy until he could share what he had seen. Fussing with snow is just foolishness, his father said. Still, he loved his son. When Willie was 17, his parents spent their savings and bought the camera. It was taller than a newborn calf and cost as much as his father's herd of 10 cows. Willie was sure it was the best of all cameras. Even so, his first pictures were failures. No better than shadows. Yet he would not quit. Mistake by mistake, snowflake by snowflake, Willie worked through every storm. Winter ended, the snow melted, and he had no good pictures. He waited for another season of snow. One day in the second winter, he tried a new experiment, and it worked. Willie had figured out how to photograph snowflakes. Now everyone can see the great beauty in a tiny crystal, he said. But in those days, no one cared. Neighbors laughed at the idea of photographing snow. Snow in Vermont is as common as dirt, they said. We don't need pictures. Willie said the photographs would be his gift to the world. While other farmers sat by the fire or rode to town with horse and sleigh, Willie studied snowstorms. He stood at the shed door and held out a black tray to catch the flakes. When he found only jumbled, broken crystals, he brushed the tray clean with a turkey feather and held it out again. He waited hours for just the right crystal and didn't notice the cold. If the shed were warm, the snow would melt. If he breathed on the black tray, the snow would melt. If he twitched a muscle as he held the snow crystal on a long wooden pick, the snowflake would break. He had to work fast or the snowflake would evaporate before he could slide it into place and take its picture. Some winters he was able to make only a few dozen good pictures. Some winters he made hundreds. Willie so loved the beauty of nature. He took pictures in all seasons. In the summer, his nieces and nephews rubbed coat hangers with sticky pitch from spruce trees. Then Willie would use them to pick up spider webs jeweled with water drops and take their pictures. On fall nights, he would gently tie a grasshopper to a flower so he could find it in the morning and photograph a dew-covered insect. But his snow crystal pictures were always his favorites. He gave copies away or sold them for a few cents. He made special pictures as gifts for birthdays. He held evening slideshows on the lawn of his friends. Children and adults sat on the grass and watched while Willie projected his slides onto a sheet hung over a clothesline. He wrote about snow and published his pictures in magazines. He gave speeches about snow to faraway scholars and neighborhood skywatchers. "You are doing great work," said a professor from Wisconsin. A little farmer came to be known as the world's expert on snow, the Snowflake Man. But he never grew rich. He spent every penny on his pictures. Willie said there were treasures in snow. "I can't afford to miss a single snowstorm," he told a friend. "I never know when I will find some wonderful prize." Other scientists raised money so Willie could gather his best photographs in a book. When he was 60 years old, Willie's book, His Gift to the World, was published. Still, he was not ready to quit. Less than a month after turning the first page on his book, Willie walked 6 miles home in a blizzard to take more pictures. He became ill with pneumonia after that walk and died 2 weeks later. A monument was built for Willie in the center of town. The girls and boys who had been his neighbors grew up and told their sons and daughters the story of the man who loved snow. 40 years after Wilson Bentley's death, children in his village worked to set up a museum in honor of the farmer scientist. And his book has taken the delicate snow crystals that once blew across Vermont, past mountains, over the earth. Neighbors and strangers have come to know of the icy wonders that land on their own mittens, thanks to Snowflake Bentley. The end. Lesson Snow. The objective is to learn how snowflakes are formed and their structures. Remember when you woke up that one morning and there was snow everywhere? What was the first thing that came to your mind? I'll give you a minute. Well, you might have seen that it was white, saw clouds in the sky, thought, "Oh man, it looks cold out there." And then you thought, snow day, no school, so it's time to have a snow fight, build a snow fort, and possibly even a snowman. But before we could do that, how do you know what snow is? Where does it come from? Well, snow is a precipitation. Precipitation means water that falls from the sky. Except this water is frozen. Well, how does that happen? Well, for water to freeze, we know it has to be 32 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures or below. And what happens is a water droplet will freeze to a particle of dust or, say, a pollen grain, and it forms an ice crystal. And as it comes down and down, the water vapor that's in the air continues to freeze to that ice crystal to make layers and layers, and that's what makes the snowflake. This is what snowflakes look like if we get up real close. So as they fall down, how do they form? Well, it takes three things. The temperature of the air, the airspeed, that means how fast or how slow that the snowflake is falling, and the path in which the snowflake falls. If it falls straight down, because the airspeed is light, then the snowflake's going to be smaller. But if the airspeed is greater, that snowflake is going to bounce around, and the more it bounces around, the more water vapor freezes to it, the bigger the snowflake is going to be. So that's how we get different sizes of snowflakes. So the snowflake shapes are determined by the temperature of the air, the airspeed, which is how fast it falls, and then the path that it takes. Did you know that the star is the most common snowflake? That's what we call the true snowflake. So when you take paper and you cut it and you fold it and you cut it, that makes the star. Billions and billions of snowflakes fall in each snowstorm. And the snow is actually colorless. It looks white because of light reflection, and sometimes snow can look blue because of the light reflection. The record snowfall for the United States in one snowstorm was 75.8 inches in Colorado in 1921. 75.8 inches. And do you ever wonder why it's so quiet when you step outside during a snowstorm or after a snowstorm? It's because snow absorbs the sound, and that's what gives us the quietness. Hope you learned a little bit from this snow lesson. Thank you. The activities for snow lesson, the first one is one that you've done many, many times before. You take a square piece of paper and you fold it and you fold it, and then you cut out shapes, and when you unfold it, you have a snowflake. That's a great activity to do with this lesson. Another way is taking pattern blocks and building a snowflake. Pattern blocks can any shape, any size, and then you start with the center, and then you build out in 6 arms of the snowflake and make sure each arm is identical. And then you can take the pattern blocks, count them up, and see how many you use, and you will have a snowflake that has symmetry. Another one is the life cycle of a snowman, because what's the first thing that we do when it snows? We build a snowman, if the snow will let us pack. But this is going to allow you to cut out each picture and then place it and glue it onto the cycle, so you can see the life cycle of the snowman. And the last one, maybe the coolest. It is 5 recipes for making snow. 5. You use baking soda, shaving cream, water, hair conditioner, cornstarch, lotion, and you will have the recipes for making snow. Hope you have a great time with the activities for snow.